Welcome to the Anderson and Lindhardt Show. This is episode 24. In today's episode, we discuss a very complex topic, scrupulosity. Scrupulosity is a form of obsessive compulsive disorder involving religious or moral obsessions. We share experiences we've had with this religious OCD and discuss tools that have helped us work through it. Thank you so much for listening and have a blessed day, y'all.
What's up, Anderson and Lindhardt Nation? We're coming to you live from the Zoom studio.
Studios.
In the clouds somewhere. But we're excited to bring you another episode. We're motivated, we're working hard, and we're excited to continue to help you find truth, help you improve your life, and try and entertain you a little bit too. So we're excited to be able to bring you this episode.
Yeah, and today, I know we've said this a bunch, but like we've laid out the expectation that this is typically, we haven't really spent a ton of time thinking about what we're going to talk about. So usually it's just kind of off the cuff, like raw thoughts, us thinking out loud. And I think this one, but we've talked about this before and we've both put a lot of thought into this, but we haven't like primed ourselves for this episode specifically about this topic. So bear with us, forgive us if the thoughts are a little rough, because it's just going to be kind of thinking out loud. But the topic Carter actually had on his mind to talk about is the official term for it is called scrupulosity. And so I learned about this on my mission because there was I bumped into it randomly on some magazine, The New Era, some magazine article that the church, I don't know how I bumped into it, but I bumped into it. I read the whole article about scrupulosity and I was like, dang, like this affects a lot of people, especially a lot of people worldwide, but in our community, a lot of people who are members of the church. And then on the mission, even more so, because you're a missionary and you think you're supposed to be perfect. So we both saw it in ourselves to differing degrees, and we saw it in tons of missionaries. So do you have any like initial thoughts to say before I read this?
Yeah, I think just like one of the reasons why I mean, obviously, like I believe it came to me through inspiration, but like I just think that this is something that probably affects almost every single member of the church to some degree, because we live such high standards, which is good. You know, Heavenly Father has high expectations for us, but it can create a sense of being overwhelmed that you can't live up to it and that you're not going to ever be perfect. And so for me, like you said, like you just kind of learned about it like randomly, and that's kind of just like the same thing. And then all of a sudden you start to see like ways that it affects you and stuff like that. So I just think like, whether you're learning about it for the first time, like listening to this episode, or like you've dealt with it for a while, like it's interesting because I believe that it affects everyone to a certain degree, maybe members of the church more so. So I just think like everyone has something that they can learn and take away so that they can try and, overcome it just a little bit. So if you're like, I don't know if I really want to listen to this one, I just think that it's really important because it does affect everyone to a certain degree.
Yeah, like anything, it's definitely on a spectrum. And I just had a thought, and so I'm just going to put it out there so I can remember it. But we can talk about it later if it comes back up. But I just had a thought, maybe a little bit of this is good, and I'll explain what I mean. But anyways, so I was just telling Carter, I just looked it up on Wikipedia real fast just to kind of get like a good summary of what scrupulosity is, just because it's kind of a big word and a lot of people don't know what it means, and a lot of people may have never even heard it. So I'll just read this real fast. It says, scrupulosity is characterized by pathological guilt/anxiety about moral or religious issues. It is more commonly known as religious anxiety. It is personally distressing, objectively dysfunctional, and often accompanied by significant impairment in social functioning. It has not been proven to be an actual disorder by medical professionals, though it falls under the anxiety category. Therefore, you kind of can say it can be diagnosed if it's really bad, in my opinion. Anyways, it mainly comes from shame or guilt from religious leaders. We'll get into that a little bit too, because I was telling Carter I don't necessarily agree with that statement, because your thoughts have a lot to do with it. Yeah, a religious leader can guilt you, but most of the time, in my experience at least, and then the hundreds of stories I've heard, typically the religious leaders, at least in our case, are very inspiring and helpful. And typically it's just your thoughts that do the destructive work. But I guess, yeah, fair enough.
And I
There's
think,
definitely some who probably are a little too harsh.
yeah,
Some,
and
yeah.
we'll get into it, but a lot of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
times they just don't understand what you're going through. Like, anyways, and so like
Yeah.
they just are like, I don't know, like, yeah. So we'll
And
get
yeah, so I was thinking, yeah, that just I just thought of how we could kind of
just break
organize
down
this. I'll
that.
read this and then we can kind of I can like read a section and we can dive into it a little bit more. I kind of
Yeah.
think of it as like a box or a suitcase, and you like we can read the label on the box and then unpack it a little bit and then go to the next one. But to finish this, it says it is typically conceptualized as a moral or religious form of obsessive compulsive disorder, which is OCD. The term is derived, this is really cool. The term is derived from the Latin scrupulum, which means a sharp stone, implying a stabbing pain on the conscience. And I think anyone who's had any bouts of scrupulosity, that religious anxiety, that probably rings true for you. A stabbing pain on the conscience, like that's a pretty good description of it. And then I guess, yeah, the last sentence is just kind of explaining that a little bit more. But then it just says, as a personality trait, scrupulosity is recognized diagnostic criterion for OCD and obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So a little bit different. It is sometimes called scrupulousness, but that word probably applies to the positive trait of having scrupulous. See, so scrupulous can be a positive as well. But anyway, so yeah, we can kind of dive into this a little bit. So if you have anything to say right now, go for it. But if not, we can kind of start unpacking it.
Yeah, let's just get into it.
Okay, so I guess first sentence, scrupulosity is characterized by pathological guilt / anxiety about moral or religious issues. Um, I think we're going to focus just on religion, and I think morality fits under that umbrella. In my
Right.
mind, I mean, all of our moral standards come from our religion. At least, let me say this: as a country or as a Western civilization, all of our moral standards come from the Bible, whether you like it or not. It's like that's what Western civilization was built off of, is Judaism and Christianity. So uh, the Bible, the Old and New Testament, and obviously we know the Book of Mormon teaches the same old principles,
Yeah.
because they're true. And so,
But we should turn away from it.
yeah, because it's
So
bad.
yeah, it's so bad. No, but,
Anyways, so
yeah,
guilt,
no,
guilt / anxiety. I think those are kind of the two main words here.
yeah, I think something that's like, it's the thing that's so hard about, whether I can't ever pronounce screwlopsity very well, so I just usually
Scrupulosity.
see again, I can't
Just say
even.
religious
Yeah,
OCD or
that's
whatever.
usually what I say. um and it's just so hard because like there are like, I don't know, just like trying to formulate my thoughts. What makes it so difficult is it takes a really good thing of like wanting to be worthy, of wanting to strive to be perfect, of wanting to become closer to Jesus, and it kind of takes it to an extreme sense. And so it's hard to sometimes gauge whether it's you kind of talking and like making stuff up, or if it's like the spirit, or if it's like your leader, like, because like I don't know. So that's one of the things that's like super difficult to learn how to discern, and what makes this such like a difficult issue to deal with, and such like like ruthless is one of the words that I would say,
Yeah.
one of the like things that it's just ruthless about, kind of dealing with this. So I was just curious, maybe kind of to start off, what are some of the ways that you've like kind of tried to discern, you know, some of the, like, if it's coming from you or if it's like, all right, this is actually something maybe I should deal with. Because like for me, it usually is like you feel bad about something that you did that maybe you don't need to feel bad about, or that you've already taken care of, or that is just this like doesn't, it does literally doesn't even matter, but yet you still feel bad for it. So I was just wondering, like, what are some of the things that you've done or experiences that you've had where you've been able to kind of decipher what's talking and stuff like that?
Yeah, to preface, I like just gonna piggyback off of what you were just saying, but it's a very, very complex issue. So I don't ever want to come off like here's the answer and I
Right.
know everything about this, because this is case by case. Uh, Everyone has their own thoughts inside their head that are probably more jumbled than you think. And so it's like, I don't know your life. I don't, but what I can definitely say what's worked for me though. And I mean, I think on the mission, on the mission, Scrupulosity came up for me,
Hmm.
but you know, it's a
Yeah,
spec, it's a,
I'd never dealt with it before my mission.
yeah, like before the mission, it was like, I don't know. It wasn't really a thing. I mean, yeah, I felt bad about some things that I did, but it wasn't to the point where it was like OCD, like
Right.
constantly on my mind, like a stabbing on my conscience. It never got to that point. And so I think that that's normal behavior to, if you actually believe in a religion or a standard, and if you violate that standard, of course your conscience is going to kind of beat you up a little bit because it doesn't want you to do it again. It's just
Right.
a small punishment, but when it's getting to the point where it's a stabbing on your conscience, then you're into the scrupulosity territory, and that can vary obviously. And so I would not ever claim that I had it really bad, but I was to the point where it felt just like a nagging on my conscience every single day on my mission, and it was really starting to piss me off. I was like, what is going on? Like, that was years ago. Like, I did that years ago. I was a stupid teenager. I didn't know anything. And so I went to President Weed and I talked with him, and I was like, President Weed, like, I did this thing like years ago, like literally 5 or so years ago. And all of a sudden last week it came, or like, it was like actually a month. It's like a month ago, it came up in my mind. I hadn't thought about it for like 3 years, 4 years. And it's just been nagging at me, like this OCD of feeling guilty. And like, I can't believe I did that. I'm such a horrible human being. And there's two voices inside of me. There's that voice just blah, blah, blah. You're like shame and guilt and just on replay. But then there was this other side of me that was like, dude, you were, I don't know how old I was, like, dude, you were a stupid teenager. You didn't know
Hmm.
anything and blah, blah, blah. So I told President Weed, and he was like, he was just so chill about it. He's just like, oh, okay, well, thanks for telling me. Like, you're good, man. Just forget about it. Like, that was years ago. He said, you know, pretty much didn't use these words, but he pretty much said, like, just hit the reset button right now. And if it ever, he said this though, this is where I wanted to get to. He said, if the adversary, or if you get those thoughts come up in your head and say that you're unworthy, because that's a very common thought to have if you're
Yeah.
dealing with this, is I'm unworthy, I'm unworthy, I'm unworthy. And it's just like on repeat. And it's a horrible thought to have on repeat because it's going to drag you down really fast. And he said, Elder Lindhardt, you're worthy. Leave it in this room and move forward. And if it ever comes back, those thoughts ever come back, tell them. So tell the voice or the thoughts that you're good. And so that's the key. So this is
Mhm.
where like change started to happen. Is I started so so I started having dialogue in my head, because so yesterday we were talking about like you can have a monologue, and a lot of people think that they're thinking just a monologue, like it's just one person inside your head, but I that's not true. I mean, everyone knows there's different voices, and it's at least a dialogue. It's at least two voices inside your head that are communicating. And so I started to put more energy into the voice that was saying, no, you're good. Like, you're good, man. You were a dumb teenager. You didn't know anything. There's no way you would do anything like that now. So, see, because the problem was, sorry, my thoughts, I'm just having so many pop up. This is cool.
Right.
So, the problem is this: you are comparing. So, in this specific example, say you did something stupid as a teenager, and now you're 22 and or 21 or 20 or whatever, and you're feeling like just absolutely horrible about it. And say that you've already um, uh, what's it called, confessed. Say you've
Hmm.
already confessed and you've truly repented and you are good to go, And that's a personal journey. Everyone's repentance is going to be a little bit different, but it all requires the same principles, which is you feel godly sorrow, you're genuinely sorry for what you did, and you make a resolution to change, and then you put in the action to change. So if you've done those things and you're feeling good, and then all of a sudden it just starts coming up, oh, you did this when you were 16, I can't believe you did this, and blah 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 blah, and it just keeps saying it over and over and over and over, and it starts to become obsessive, like OCD. Then you need to see, I kind of forgot where I was going with this, but you need to recognize that there's two voices inside of your head, and the one that you give the energy to is the one that's going to win. So this is a lot easier said than done. It worked really well for me because I was already obsessed with how your thoughts affected you and things like that. And so it's a battle at first just to start a new thought process, because it's your brain literally, like physically and mentally, but like physically, your brain on brain scans shows a stronger connection between neurons when you're thinking a specific thought. And so I think of it as thread. The first time you think a thought, it's like between two neurons, there's like a thread that connects it. And then each time you think it, it's like another thread's getting added on. So if you think the thought 10,000 times, like that's a really strong rope, and you're not just going to change your mind, and you're going to have to start the same process on a new set of neurons. And it's really difficult, but it got to the point where the voice inside of me that was like, no, dude, you're good. You're worthy. Everything's taken care of. Keep doing you, got so strong that if I did like little mess ups on the mission, or just even now, that don't really require you to go talk to somebody, but like little mess ups, then it was, instead of the old me on the mission, if I would say like, so I, ever since high school, my mom won't appreciate this, but I always had like an issue with swearing. And like I still do, like it never went away. It didn't even go away on my mission. Like there was times on my mission where a swear word would come out, like a swear word, like if I was alone or something, or frustrated. And
I mean, you would cuss all the time during lessons. So I mean,
it's like, listen here, no, it's like, yeah, it was always like, if I was having a bad day and I was in the bathroom at night, and I would just kind of like say something under my breath. And so anyways, swearing is always, it's funny. Like it's just been a little thing that has always kind of been a part of me since I was like 15, 14. And so if I were to say like a cuss word at the prime, when like my scrupulosity was at its highest, I would think I was like the worst person on earth. Like just, I can't believe I did that. That was so bad, blah, blah, blah. But now if I say a cuss word, I'm like, my bad. And then I'll literally say like, sorry, God, like, I sorry, dude, like I'm messing up. I'm trying. And then I move on, and then it's good. It's in the past. And so once you strengthen that voice, it gets to the point where when you do mess up, you forgive yourself so quickly that you're already moving on, and you're not wasting any energy ruminating on it. Oh, I can't believe I said that S word. I'm such a horrible person. It's like, no, it's just like, oh, oops, like said that. It's in the past now. The best thing I can do right now is move forward with a higher resolution and try better. So that's kind of a really jumbled way to say, we can get it more into it, but a really jumbled way to say that there's dialogue going inside your head, and it's like the old parable of the wolves, and I think it's some old Native American parable or something, but there's two wolves inside a man, a good and an evil. And the elder asks it's telling the little kid this, and he says, which wolf do you think will win? And the little kid's like, oh man, I don't know, like the good wolf. And the old man says, whatever wolf you feed will win. And so you just gotta pour energy into the thoughts of
not feeding you Scrupulosity wolf.
Yeah, Scrupulosity Mishnah. But like literally talk to yourself and write it out on paper. Like I would literally write on paper, like I am worthy, like I already repented and talked to so and so, and I'm good, and these thoughts, and I would write the thoughts down, are lies. And over and over and over, and just repeating the process over and over. And now 2.5 years later, it's a muscle now that's strong, where if I do mess up, it's like, okay, no worries, like let's move on. There's no point in sulking in the past. But 3 years ago, like, I can't believe I did that. Oh my gosh, I'm so horrible. And then you start feeling shame. And then shame is like the word. Okay, this is side note. I shouldn't say this because it's going to get me distracted. But side note, the lowest vibrational emotion recorded, according to a lot of people, is shame. It's like shame is bad, dude. Guilt's different. Shame is really low. Shame is like I'm worthless and nobody loves me. God doesn't love
It's
me.
like you're when dogs have their tail between their legs.
Yeah,
Like
that's so
just
sad.
yeah, but that's like how you feel. Yeah, it's
So that's where scrupulosity ends, is always shame. And shame, if you feel shameful, then that cycle is just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So improving the dialogue inside your head, it's all thoughts. Like people think thoughts are just like these fairy tale things that happen, but thoughts literally, with machines that can detect electrical frequencies, can detect thinking. And so thinking is literally, not just figuratively, but literally giving off energy that can be detected. And so that means your thoughts have energy. They don't stay inside your head. It's literally energies coming out of your head when you're thinking. Therefore, you're using energy. And so it's like, okay, well, so here's a good saying that's good to remember. Where your attention goes, energy flows. And then where energy goes, that grows. And so if you're putting your attention on all these thoughts, like I'm unworthy, I'm a horrible person, I'm not worthy to do this, mission president's going to send me home, I'm going to get excommunicated, like all these BS thoughts, it's like, dude, you did something that like 90% of church members do. You're not getting excommunicated, but like people will literally convince themselves they are. If they're putting their attention there, that's where their energy is going. And where you put your energy, that grows. And so then that grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And so at first it's going to suck, but you're going to have to start adverting your attention to more positive thoughts. And two good ways to do that: have people that you can talk with to help you clear your mind. That's one thing that's so powerful about confession. A lot of people, it's like so dumb. They're like, why should I have to, especially like ideologue females, they'll be like, why do I have to tell a man what I've done? And I'm like, it's not about that. It's about getting it off your chest. Everyone knows that when you've done something like messed up and you tell someone, you're like, oh gosh, I feel so much better. Like, I can't believe I've been hiding this
even
for so
if
long.
it's not a priesthood leader, like even if
You just went and told your buddy, like, dude, like I've been doing this bad thing
I
and I feel
killed
horrible.
a cat.
Like, dude, I hit a cat in the car and I didn't even stop and go see if it was okay, bro. I feel so bad. But like, if you just kept that to yourself, you'd be like, oh my gosh. 10 years later, you'd be like, I can't believe I didn't tell anybody about that cat I hit. Like, I'm horrible. So part of that, and part of it is having somebody to just help you clear your head, because inside your head, if you're just trying to battle these thoughts, it's so difficult. But if I come to you as a friend and I'm like, hey man, I'm having all these thoughts that are like, you're unworthy and this and that and the other, then you can be like, hey man, you're not. And I'm here as evidence for you, that you are worthy and you are loved, and it's okay to move forward. And so you need to have people in your life that will help you clear your mind. But then when you're alone, because you're going to be alone here and there, you need to have a pen and paper, and you need to be writing, because writing is, you can see the different sides. So I like to take a piece of paper, fold it in half. On one side, write out all the negative thoughts that you're having. So like, I am unworthy because I did, and then be specific, whatever the thought says, because I did this thing. You know, I'm not worthy to get what I want. I'm not worthy to pray. I'm not worthy to serve other people, like blah, 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 blah. Write out all the thoughts. And then on the other side of the paper, write out the opposites of the thoughts. I am worthy to pray. I am worthy. I am loved. I can move forward, instead of I can't. I can let the past go and create a new future. And then rip it in half, down the middle, and don't even read the negative ones again, because then they'll go back in your head. Just crumple it up, throw it away. Preferably, I like to throw it away in the outside trash, so it's not just in my house. Or you can burn it. That's always fun. If you got like a grill in the back or something, just go burn it. But yeah, throwing it away is fine. You can rip it up, but go throw it away, and then The new thoughts, hang them up on a wall. You don't even have to do that. For a while, I just had them in a journal on my mission, and I would just read them in the morning. I would just open the journal up, read them inside my head like 3 or 4 times. And then I would do that practice every day for at least, honestly, I would prescribe like at least 4 to 6 weeks. And it's going to get really annoying and really repetitive of writing these negative thoughts out that you're having every day.
Right.
But after the 6 weeks, it's going to start, all that process of writing them out and changing them to positives is going to start happening inside your head, and you won't have to write them out.
Yeah. I mean, it's just exactly like what we talked about yesterday. The incremental improvements will continue to grow, and it's going to be weird and hard and difficult at the beginning, but it can, after a while, it'll just become second. It will become a system, like we talked about yesterday, where you don't have to be doing those very tedious tasks every single day. It's just going to become your thought process. So, but I liked what you said about having someone to like kind of talk it out, because like that was probably one of my favorite things about when we were companions. We'd never like really get into like specifics of like why I'm feeling bad or whatever, but it was more so like like I don't know, it was just like so interesting. I'm sure President Gervais is like, oh my gosh, like both my assistants are just like so obsessed with like being worthy and stuff like this. But anyway, it's just like it was so nice to be able to know, like, because we both knew that like that was something that we like both had a hard time with. And so like we wouldn't like be like, hey man, like I did this yesterday and like I'm feeling bad about it or whatever. But it was more so like we could like tell when the other one was like maybe having a tough time with it or whatever, and we could just like talk it out a little bit. And it was just like so helpful. Like I can't remember very many times where it got like super bad in our time as companions. And I think the big part of that was because we had like the opportunity to just be able to talk it out pretty consistently and be really open about it. And so that was something like I think that's really important, to have someone that you can trust to like just be able to talk things out, because a lot of the times like when you talk things out, or even if you like talk specifics, you're like, oh yeah, I probably don't need to feel bad about that, but Satan's in your head just like boom 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 boom. Like if it's just you, then you don't have anyone to bounce it off, and that thought gets more real and real and real. So that was something that I like that you said, is having someone to be able to talk to. But I also think trying to break it down just a little bit on what it is has been helpful for me, because like OCD, like you have a negative thought and it's over compulsion disorder. So you have a thought.
Obsessive.
Yeah. I don't even know what it's called, but obsessive compulsive disorder. So you have this obsession and you have to have a compulsion to be able to relieve it. And so like trying to understand scrupulosity, you have this obsessive thought of that I'm not worthy. And a lot of the time that coincides with I need to confess for something. And so a lot of the times, like when we're talking about feeling bad or something, that thought won't go away until you take care of it. And then a lot of the times, I haven't really dealt with this, but I know a lot of the times, even when you do take care of it, when you go confess or when you repent, the thought will then turn into you didn't do it good enough.
Yeah,
or,
yeah,
or
which
you,
is
which
good
is
point. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
so dumb. And so like I mean, maybe it's just like for me, when I kind of realized that this is the thought process and this is what it's trying to get me to do, it helped empower me a little bit to be like, okay, it's not the spirit telling me a lot of the times that you need to, because there are times the spirit will say, yeah, you need to go take care of this or whatever it might be. But like when I realized that it was like, oh, okay, this is a thought. This is the obsessive thing that's trying to get me to do this compulsion. It's like, I'm not going to take orders from that. It's like the same thing as like, it's becoming self-discipline when you're able to figure out where that thought's coming from. You're like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to listen to that because it's trying to get me to do something that I don't need to do. So like when I figured out just a little bit more about OCD and like how it works, it empowered me a lot to be able to like, I don't know, just be better equipped to deal with it.
Yeah. And I guess I should probably read what's next, but I was just going to say, um, scrupulosity is, so if you imagine perfectionism as a big tree, it's got tons of branches coming off of it. So it manifests in different ways. And scrupulosity is just a form of perfectionism. And one thing that because perfectionism has run inside my family's line, and so, but it doesn't mean we're victims to it. And so one thing that I've learned from my mom that I've implemented for the past 3 years, and like I said, that muscle has gotten really strong. It's hard to even remember what it was like to not be this mentally strong, but I can, if I try, I can remember what it was like when perfectionism would kick my butt real bad. And so my mom would say, when you recognize perfectionism, don't get all worked up. Just say, oh, that's my perfectionism. Or I wouldn't even say mine. I would just say, oh yeah, that's perfectionism. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to recognize that the feeling's there. And then I'm going to make a plan and go with my plan. And I'm not going to, like you said, take orders to the perfectionism. So don't get all worked up about it. Be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm having scrupulosity, and Reiss and Carter just explained it all to me, and I'm such a victim to this. Just be like, oh, these are scrupulous thoughts, or these are perfectionistic thoughts, and that's all they are. They're just thoughts. And so the worst thing they can do is create a feeling inside of me. But if I choose new thoughts, then I can have a different feeling inside of me. So don't get all worked up. That literally, I've said that to myself so many times that now it's to the point, it's getting to the point, and like I said, it takes maintenance. Like I have to keep it up.
Right.
But I just get to the point where I'm just like, oh, that's just perfectionism. No big deal. Like perfectionism would have me do this, but I know I should do this, so I'm gonna do this. Um, and that works, man. And at first you might not think it's working, but keep doing it. Within 8 weeks, you'll notice a difference, and within a year, you'll be a new you, and within 2 years, the new you is going to be normal now. So, see, this is on the more extreme side. Scrupulosity is often accompanied by significant impairment in social functioning. This is more on the extreme side of scrupulosity, but I definitely think that
I have something
people can.
to say on that real quick. I think one of the things when I kind of verbalized this, it helped me understand it a little bit better. Was that I never dealt with like I'm I don't know social what it said social impairment or social whatever.
Yeah,
I
pretty much just
basically the
impairment in
same thing.
social interactions.
Like I like you'll read stories like because obviously like because it's something that I've dealt with, like I try and learn a lot about it, and like you'll read stories of where that definitely affects people. But I think more so I view it as that it impairs you religiously. And so for me, when I realized that these thoughts are making the spiritual things that I know where I can feel the spirit, it's making me not want to do those things. It helped me understand that these thoughts are from the adversary, like big time, because it's like I obviously like as a missionary, like you're not going to the temple or whatever, but I can just imagine like being in one of those like thought processes of like you're just feeling so unworthy, like the last place you're going to want to be is the temple. Or like as a missionary, like teaching a lesson, like I'm sure there was times where I should not even be here teaching this lesson because I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I have things that I need to take care of. And so it's just like when I started to realize that these thought processes were religiously impairing me to make the things that strengthen me and the things that are going to help me, when it started to attack those things and make me not want to do them, I was like, okay, I can now start to realize that these are coming from Satan, because he knows that if he can just ruin my experience at the temple, if he can just ruin my experience teaching this lesson or my personal study or my personal prayers, then it's just like he almost takes away your lifeline, and then it's just then you're just dead in the water. And so for me, when I kind of realize that this is I mean, Satan has a ton of ways to be able to attack us, but this is one of like his ways that he can like boom just nip it in the bud. And then you're not going to the temple anymore, you're not praying, you're not reading your scriptures, you're not going to church, and all of a sudden you're just like, how in the world did I get here? But it's just like for me, I don't know if that totally coincided, but like for me, that was like a huge okay. Like when I could like pick someone that those thoughts were coming from, that was really empowering.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I remember when my cousin got home from his mission, I was a senior in high school, and think it was Super Bowl Sunday. We always went to the specific cousin's house for Super Bowl Sunday. And at halftime, my grandma would conduct like a little spiritual thought every time. And so
That's
um
sweet. I want to do that,
yeah,
man.
because my grandma loves sports, but she loves the Lord too. So she would be like, all right, halftime, everybody, we're turning the TV off. Like, we don't need to watch Katy Perry dance around half naked. Let's talk about Jesus.
Have fireworks blowing off of her.
Yeah, it's like, frick that. I'd rather watch. So, anyways, I'd rather listen to my grandma talk about Jesus. So,
Yeah.
anyways, she had my cousin. He had just been home for a little bit. She had him say a few words, and he said one thing I learned on my mission, and it was like a really short example, but I've never forgotten it. He said, it, so he said, say your goal is to read your scriptures every day for at least 10 minutes, and say one day you say you miss a day, then you have a thought that says, I can't believe you missed a day. You're such a bad person. And he's like, a lot of people will confuse that with the spirit because they're like, yeah, I can't believe I missed a day. He's like, no, what would
Dang
this?
it.
Yeah, it's like, ah, oh, dang. But he's like, what God or the spirit or what have you, what he would say is, hey, no worries, man. Just get back on the horse and start reading today. And yeah, if you kept ignoring that, then it could get a little bit harsher. Hey, seriously, dude, like get back on the horse. It's not going to lead anywhere good if you're off of it. But he would never say, dude, you're such a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember that and I was like, yeah, that's so true. It's like we get that so confused that we think our higher power is telling us that we're a bad person. Your higher power would never tell you that you're a bad person unless maybe you actually were like super evil. But
Unless
most of
you're
us,
like Hitler.
yeah, like, but we're not evil. Like most of us, we have the potential for evil, but most of us are just trying our best. And
Right.
so God's not going to be like, Carter, I cannot believe you only read for 5 minutes today. You're such a bad person.
Freaking pile.
Pile, you sack. Just don't read tomorrow. You're not even worthy to do that.
Yeah, and you probably should just stop praying. Like when you verbalize these thoughts,
Yeah,
you
it's
just
so
realize
funny.
how insane they sound. Like just like saying those things, like, well, because you didn't read your scriptures, or because you said a swear word, or because like as a missionary you broke this rule, or whatever. It's just like what? And I'll always remember this, and I think about it pretty often when I'm teaching about forgiveness or repentance and stuff like this. I remember we were I can't remember what it was, where we were driving from. We were driving to Nikio's house, and we were just kind of talking about forgiveness and repentance and stuff like that. We were just talking about how, like, Elder Eyring's quote talks about, then this quote is amazing. He says, if you can feel the spirit, or if you felt the spirit, you can know that the atonement is working in your life, kind of like as a gauge to know that you're doing all right. Like you're doing okay if you can feel the spirit, or if you have felt the spirit. And we were talking about, there are times where I felt the spirit that I probably shouldn't have. Like we would talk about, like, whether it's, you're doing dumb stuff, and then you go bless the sacrament on Sunday, and then you feel the spirit blessing the sacrament. And I remember we were walking up to Nikio's door, and we both were kind of like, well, maybe God is a lot more forgiving than we think he is. Because, like, you know, that quote is true. If you feel the spirit, you can know that the atonement is working in your life. And then we were both kind of like, at least for me, I was like, dang, like maybe like we are like way, way, way too hard on ourselves. Because it's like there are times where I felt the spirit where I was totally like, there's no way I should be feeling the spirit right now, but yet you did. And it kind of changed my perspective a little bit when we had that conversation of being like, holy cow, like maybe God is like super, super forgiving. So for me, that quote, along with that experience and conversation that we had, has like helped me out a ton, for number one, forgiving myself, but also like being able to have a specific gauge to be like, okay, I felt the spirit today, so I know I'm doing all right. Or I felt the spirit yesterday, so I know I'm doing okay. And so, like, I don't know if you had any thoughts on that from your experience, or if you even remember that conversation.
I
But for
do.
me, like,
No, I
that was
do.
like changed like everything, especially my perspective on God. I was like, holy cow, like I mean, I know he is a lot more forgiving than we give him credit for.
Yeah, no, I do remember that. And I have thought a lot about it. And it's like everything in life, there's a balance. And so it's like, yeah, you need that ideal, which is Christ, is the ultimate ideal. But on a smaller scale, it's like, who could I be in this lifetime? And you create that ideal, and any ideal is automatically a judge. It doesn't have to do anything. The reason people feel judged, see, I'm not going to get into this. We could make a whole episode out of this, but people who say like, oh, I get judged by.
I'm going to start taking notes, and I'm committing to you every
Okay.
time we say that to write that down.
Okay. Yeah. So we could do a whole thing on this, but for people who say, we're in Utah, so I'll just say, I'll use this example, but it really kind of goes for anything. For example, there will be a group of kids in high school, and they'll say, oh, I hate those Mormon kids because they're so judgy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
heard that 100 times.
Yeah. So typically they're not very judgy. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes they are. There's always outliers. So I'm not going to be ideological and say it's one way, but I will say, at least in my observation, because I have seen one case where there was this girl, and like she was super judgy and whatever, but most cases,
like there are cases where it's like, don't hang out with that kid, he's not a Mormon, and it's like, okay,
yeah, and it's like, hey, yeah, there's people like that, but most people are trying to do their best to love everybody and to include everybody, and the reason that so and so feels judged by their friend who's living higher standards is because they're living higher standards, and higher standards automatically, without the person saying, doing, or intending anything, judge. Right. Because when you think about Jesus, your brain automatically compares yourself to him. And do you feel like, oh, wow, I'm so close? No, you're like, oh, dang. And all of a sudden your brain's like, you're lacking this, you're lacking this, you're lacking this, you're lacking this. And so it's a judge.
And he didn't even say anything.
All he did is he's just there loving you. So every ideal is a judge. And so even the person that you think you could be in the future automatically judges you. But the reason that's good, and the reason all throughout scripture, this idea of judgment, God is the judge, God is the judge, Jesus will judge you in the last day. The reason that idea is so important is because a judge, I see it as a judge is, so the ideal is the judge, and the ideal shines a light on you, and it exposes all your weak points. And so because of that, now you know where to fix. So now you know what to work on. So that's why you need an ideal and an aim. But
aim, there it is again.
Aim. But here's where scrupulosity comes in. The judge shines the light on you. The ideal shines the light on you. It exposes your weak points, and you say, "Oh, I'm so far. I'm so weak. I'm worthless." Mm-hmm. It's literally just a different mindset. And so you have to change your mindset, and don't be resentful towards your ideal. Because a lot of people get resentful towards God because they're like, oh, God is just so demanding.
He's making me feel this way. Like, yeah, if God made you feel worthless and hopeless and helpless, yeah, I wouldn't want to turn to him either. And so I think a lot of people get it confused. They're like, I feel this way every time I walk into a church. Like, why would I ever want to do that? Like, I would be like, yeah, I wouldn't want to do that either.
Exactly. And it's like
terrible.
It's like the reason you feel that way is because deep down, you might not know it yet, but deep down you want to be like that. Because if you genuinely, like in your soul, did not want to be like your friend who lives higher standards, you probably wouldn't feel judged by them. You would just be like, oh yeah, so-and-so, he's cool. Like he does different habits than me, but whatever. But most people, they have this desire to be better, even if they don't consciously know it. But if you would think, ponder, and pray about it, most people, you would feel that desire. It's a human desire to improve. And so you look at your buddy who's ahead of you in life a little bit, and his light is casting down on you, and it's exposing everywhere where you're weak and where you're lacking. And so you can look at that with two different mindsets. Like I said, you can look at it as, oh, cool. Now I know what to work on. Before I didn't. Without that judge, I had no idea what to work on. That's why we need to compare ourselves to Christ, because he's the ultimate ideal. He's perfect in every single way. There's no ideal that's higher than that. And so you don't compare. I don't want to compare myself to you or to my brother. I compare myself to Christ. His light comes down. I look down. Okay, look, I'm weak here, here, here. Now I know what to work on. Let's start with this one. And that's just a mindset shift. And so mindset shifts are not easy, but they're easier than you think. It just takes time and effort. like like anything, time and effort and consistency. 3 years later, you're going to be like, wow, now I'm
Right.
grateful for people who expose my weaknesses. Before I was resentful and I was like, don't look at my weaknesses, like screw you, like I'm doing
Yeah.
fine. And so there's this balance. You'd never that's why I think it's been so slow with Christianity for since it started growing in the Western world, has been very judgmental. Like, oh, if you have sex out of wedlock, you're burning in hell. Like, no forgiveness, you're done, see ya. If you whatever. So it was very,
Excommunicated.
yeah, you're done. Oh, like, oh, you said the F word, bye bye, can't come to church for 3 months, whatever. So it was very judgmental. And the church of our Church of Jesus Christ, followed that because it was around Protestantism, and it just um the culture was still kind of the same. But over the years, 200 years, about 200 years, it's the culture. We've been learning more about God because I believe, because the people have been getting to the point where we are ready to receive this new information about how merciful God is. Because if these people would have gone from, if you have sex out of wedlock, you're burning in hell for the rest of eternity and there's no hope for you. If they went from that to, if you murdered 3 people and had sex out of wedlock, you still have a chance to get to heaven. If they went from that to that, they'd be like, whoa, this is complete BS. And so it's just happened incrementally over the years, but we're starting to learn how merciful God is, but it still hasn't taken the judge out of him. He's still a judge. And so we still need both sides, but it's like anything. It's like politics. It's like anything. You need both sides. And then both sides have to have dialogue with each other. This is how our government's set up. You have two sides. No one's right or wrong. It's just two different points of view. The different points of view come and they talk and they have dialogue with one another. And dialogue means they listen to one another and then they come up with a solution. And so it's the same way. You're going to have this really tyrannical, judgmental side, and then you're going to have the side that's like, it's okay that you honked at that guy and flipped him off and cussed at him. It's okay, you're fine. And neither of those are right. It's somewhere here in the middle. And so you need to hear both sides. Okay, it is okay that I did that, but at the same time, it's not. So it's really, life is very paradoxical. And that's why everyone always says there's a balance. There's a balance. Like, it's like the most cliche thing you hear. It's like, well, how do you do this? Oh, well, it's a balance. Oh, well, there's a balance. And it's like, yeah, there's a freaking balance. And everyone's trying to figure it out. And no one's figuring it out that well. We're all trying our hardest. But you can never completely get rid of the judge, or else you're
Right.
going to turn into a bum who says it's okay to be obese.
Yeah.
Or it's okay to eat like crap because I'm going to die anyways. Or you have to just love yourself completely and flaws and all. And it's like, yeah, true, but you're missing the side that exposes your weaknesses so you know what to work on. And so it's that finding that balance is a personal journey. It's different for everybody, and it's going to take time and effort.
Yeah, one of the things that's just been like so helpful in me finding that balance has just been straight up asking God, be like, help me be able to know where these thoughts are coming from. Because like inadvertently I was changing my thought process. That's what I just think is so cool about like God, is like as I like talk to you and get to know, learn more about thoughts, and as you know, you learn more about how powerful they are. It was like God was teaching me how to do that without like really teaching me how to do that. But like I would pray and ask him. I still do it pretty consistently. Be like, help me to know which thoughts are coming from you and which thoughts are coming from Satan. Because a lot of the time, like sometimes he's gonna say, yeah, you're being a little bit lazy, like come on man, like pick it up. And
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. Like at the beginning when I first started like praying for that and starting to try and recognize that, I wasn't very good at it, but now I can almost like instantly when I have a thought, I like know who it's from. Like if I have a thought where it's like I don't like just a negative thought, it's like okay, yeah, I know that was from Satan or whatever. And so for me that's been a huge way in helping me find a balance, is just like praying for it. Because I feel like when you pray for something, you're going to be more aware for it. That's your aim. There it is again. But like you have that aim, and so then all of a sudden, when the thought comes, your mind goes to, all right, who's this from? Boom, 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 and then all of a sudden you got a system in place and then you don't even have to think about it anymore. You almost just like subconsciously a thought
It's a
comes in. You're not
filter.
even, it's a filter, and all of a sudden you don't even like have to deal with those thoughts as much anymore because you've just got it down so well that you don't even need to like worry about it anymore. And so for me, that was like so important in finding a balance and being able to like start to really understand those thoughts a lot better. Was just like almost like submitting to it, like, God, I can't discern these on my own a lot of the time, because sometimes they feel super real. Like there
Yeah.
like there will be times where you're like, I shouldn't be a missionary, or I, shouldn't be whatever. And those feel like super real, like the phrase of like the stabbing on the mind. It's like so true. And so it's like it feels real. And so asking God to help you know what is real was like a big turning point for me and being able to figure it out.
Yeah. Love it, man. Another thing that came to my mind that we can talk about on another one is meditation, because I haven't given enough credit to meditation. You're trying to FaceTime me, bro.
Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, we're good.
Okay. So another thing I don't give enough credit to is meditation, because I haven't consistently done it for the past like 6 months.
Mhm.
But when I think back, now that I'm kind of in this reminiscent mindset, I'm thinking back on how I have strengthened my mentality so much, and I attribute a lot of it to meditation. So I don't want to jump into that real deep right now, but I just want to say learning how to meditate was one of the biggest one of one of the major tools that propelled me forward with thought work. And when I say thought work, I mean choosing my thoughts and actually having them stick. Meditation was key to that. And I always feel like my conscience is telling me to meditate more. So I am committing right now to do so. And then we can talk about it like in a month or so after I've done it a
Yeah,
bunch again, because meditation has been so major for me in my life.
yeah. I felt a similar call, and so I've put it in my schedule. Like first thing to do is to meditate. Like I just put 15 minutes in. If I get 15 minutes,
Yeah.
great. But I haven't really done it yet either. So maybe that's what we need to do, is
Yeah.
trying to push ourselves to do more, and then we can kind of share our experiences a little bit about it. But I agree. I think that's something that, like, obviously, like, you're a lot better meditator than I am, but I think that was something that was like, I could just tell a difference. Like you would go and meditate, whether it was in the bathroom or in the shower or just in our room or whatever, and you could tell like how big of a resource that was for you and being able to help you cope, whether it was just with life or whether it was scrupulosity, whatever it might be. Like it was pretty, like you could tell like that it was like something that you actually relied on and that you really used. And so I think like that is a really good way to be able to kind of clear your thoughts and get into a good headspace so that you can be having a lot more clear thoughts. So that's something I'm not super great at it, but I can
Yeah.
attest that I saw the difference that it made in you.
Cool. Yeah. No, it takes a lot of practice, because literally what happens if you're meditating correctly, which it's a skill you have to learn, which is kind of weird. You think like you just sit there and do nothing, but it's like, no, you're actually doing a lot. And you can never shut your brain off. That's a misconception about meditating, is that like, are you just supposed to not have any thoughts? Like, no, your brain will never stop having thoughts. The key is just to detach from them. But your brain literally goes, the brain has different wavelengths. And like I said, we could go over this in a whole podcast. I really think it's fun to talk about. But right now, you and I are in beta. Um, Beta is a faster wavelength, one of the fastest actually, and that's awake um, consciousness. So, we're having a discussion and we're alert. Well, when you start to meditate, the key is to start to slow the brain waves down. And these brain waves, the way they know what the frequencies are is because they measure them. They put the thing stickers all over people's brain on their heads, and they have them meditate, and they watch the brain waves start to slow down. And when they start to slow down, they go into alpha, and even lower is theta, and then even lower than that's delta. And no one really gets into delta when they're meditating. It's usually alpha and theta. Delta is like deep sleep, or like a coma. And so alpha is where you start to detach from your ego, and your brain starts to slow down. And for me, it was a good place to go And it took a lot of practice to learn how to get there. For like the first month of meditating, it was a chore. It was like, hey, 10 minutes. I just got to sit here and listen to this lady and keep track of my breath. And then it got to the point after 3 months where I started doing less and less guided meditations. And then it got to the point where all I could do is either put on noise canceling headphones and have white noise, or turn on some really chill meditation music, and I can just get into the alpha state by myself.
Mhm.
Which, see, I don't know if I could probably do that right now, but it would be difficult. So I want to get back to that point where it was just like I could sit down and within 5 to 10 minutes I was in alpha. And you can notice it, because typically for me, I'll be meditating and then my head will kind of go like this, and that's when my brainwaves start to slow down, and I'm like, oh dang, I'm in alpha, and my body starts to fall asleep a little bit. And when you get into theta, your body almost completely falls asleep. There's been times where I'm meditating and I completely, like, it's so hard to explain, but have completely lost feeling of my body. And I'm aware of it, I know it's there, but like it's hard to explain. Like it's almost like a drug, but you did it just with your mind. Like I completely lost track of my body, but I was able to go inside my head, and it's so easy, because when you're in beta, it's hard to differentiate between all your thoughts. But when you go down into alpha and then even theta and even slower brain wavelength, it's like, oh, okay, so here's the thoughts I've been having. And now you're the observer, and you're like, okay, so those thoughts are coming from this voice, and that voice sounds kind of harsh. And I know God wouldn't have this harsh tone. And these ones that are telling me that it's okay that I messed up because I'm human and I just have to move forward with a resolve to do better, those have kind of a warm tone, and that sounds like that's from God. And so I'm going to ignore those ones. So it's like all of a sudden everything's slowed down, and you've stepped out of the thoughts, and now you're just looking at the thoughts are still going a million miles an hour, but you're calm and collected, and you can look around and see them. So that's what meditation did for me and does for me. It's huge. Like I love meditation, and I just can't believe I haven't been consistent at it for the past 6 months. I haven't gone like a week without doing it, but I love when it's a daily routine. It's life changing. And so that's huge, was meditating. And so my advice would be to start by downloading an app like Calm, or even if you don't want to do that, go onto YouTube and just search 10-minute guided meditation. There's tons. And start practicing. And for the first like 4 weeks, at least for me, it was kind of boring. I was like, gosh, this sucks. Like my back hurts and all this crap. But
You're like, I got an itch.
oh dude, you get an itch. You're like, and then you'll have perfectionism that says, well, if I itch it, then the whole thing's shot and then it doesn't count. And it's like, that's not true. There's no right way to meditate. I mean, well,
Right.
there kind of is, but if you're allowed to itch and you're allowed to shift, because I thought it's like you have to stay in the same spot. It's like, no, you're allowed to shift. And if you have an itch, it's okay. Just get back to it. And that's what they always say on the guided meditations. They're like, if your thoughts have strayed, just come back to the breath. And you're like thinking about the most random crap. You're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but the
Right,
better
this
you,
is super,
no, you're good. What?
this is super random. But when I was a little kid, I don't know why, but I would have this thought that every time I had an itch, I was like, there are people in the military that cannot, like, they're like in surveillance or whatever, that cannot itch their itches. So I'm not going to itch my itches. And it was like the weirdest thing. I would always just be like, nope, I'm not going to do it. Like there's people, and I don't even know if that's true, but it was just like super random. Like I would be like this little 6-year-old. I'm like, now there's people in the military going ham and they can't itch their itches, so I'm not gonna itch.
Dude, that's like interesting. It's kind of cool though that a little kid would be thinking that.
It was just like this, yeah,
Like
weird.
a little kid, dude. It's true. There's probably some dude standing there or running around a city in Iraq, and he's got a really bad itch and he can't scratch it, and he's like just using the self-discipline to forget about it.
He's just like, there's some kid on the toilet in American Fork, Utah, not itching his itches either. So
Like bless that kid's heart. That poor 6-year-old. I'd let him itch it.
yeah.
Anyways, one thing I just want to say real fast that I forgot to say is I was going to bring up the principle of like comparing yourself to others. And I touched on it. This was like 30 minutes ago. There's a beetle on my wall, dude. I got weevils, bro. Got to get Jackson over here.
Yeah.
Dude, I seriously don't like those little beetles. They're so stupid. I've killed like 4 of them.
It's just an inconvenience. You should put them in a bottle and yell at them.
Shake them up. telling me
Yeah.
stupid. No, I'm just kidding. I'll probably just smush them and put them in the toilet,
There you
flush
go.
them. That's what I've done with like 4 of them today. Anyways, so the principle of compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. So that whole thing. Well, if you're comparing yourself, who you are now, what you know now, to 16-year-old Carter,
Mm-hmm.
and you're it's kind of difficult to explain, but you are holding 16-year-old Carter to what you know now. It's like, how is that fair?
Right.
So that was another thing that I started to get into, was like,
Mm.
I'm a human being. I'm a 19-year-old dude, and I'm doing really good. And I'm doing the best I know how. And that helped a lot to kind of talk myself through things and be like, I'm just a person. Like, I'm a human. I say this to myself a lot. It helps me. Like, I'll just be like, I'm a animal on a giant rock in space, and I'm doing good. I'm doing better than like 90% of human beings. Like, you and I used to say this about each other. We'd go into someone's
Right.
house where it's just like, it's just horrible. The
A
vibration is
bona
so
bona
low,
fide
and
show.
exactly. And it's just like horrible. And you're like, we're doing pretty good. Like,
Yeah.
like we're doing really good. It's all about perspective. And so it obviously doesn't mean that you're doing the best, because you never will hit that. But they're doing pretty good, so compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who you were, and this isn't in a personal growth sense, this is in a religious sense. I'm talking like,
Mm-hmm.
don't judge 16-year-old Reiss on what 22-year-old Reiss knows now, because it's just not fair. That kid didn't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
That kid like thought he was the center of the universe, and it's like, that kid was screwing around, but he didn't know what I know now. So
If I knew back then what I know right now. Yeah. No, I think that's I've never thought about it in that sense of like a lot of the time those thoughts are coming from a place where you might have not even known any better, or you've messed up like that. So I think that that's an interesting thought, because you're judging yourself off of what you know right now, and like you said, like when you rationally talk that out, that's really not fair. Like it's like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense, but how often do you do that to yourself? So I think that's
yeah.
pretty cool. But yeah, the only thing I would add is like for me, like finding like resources to study about it has been probably like one of the most helpful things. Just like I think it's September 2019 enzyme has it's not just about scrupulosity
Scrupulosity.
scrupulosity
Yeah, yeah.
which is OCD. It doesn't just talk about that, it talks a lot about perfectionism as well, but there's like 9 or 10 articles, and we'll have to put it in the
Yeah.
description
I
or
want to try to
something. But I
find it.
remember President Drew Bay like coming and shit, because like obviously like he knew us a little bit and knew that we'd both like, struggled with it to some extent. And he comes in, he's like, guys, look what's in the enzyme. It's just like all these like articles about OCD
Yeah,
and
I
like
remember
all this
this.
stuff. And I just remember like just going to town reading those things. I think
Mm,
I even read one of them on our drive home that night, just because I was so excited to read it. And so for me, like that's been so helpful. Number one, just being able to read someone else's stories
mm,
about what they've dealt with, and being like, oh my gosh, like I'm not crazy, because sometimes you feel
yeah.
insane. But then also just being able to learn more about like the illness or the anxiety is like super helpful. So for me, that would be like, if this is kind of new to you and you're like, oh my gosh, like realizing that this is something that you deal with and you struggle with, like that would be a great first place to start, is to go to that enzyme article and just like study it and just like kind of get a basis for kind of what you're dealing with. And so for me, that was super helpful.
And that was September 2019 enzyme, you said?
Let me double check. But yes, I believe I've spent a fair amount of time
Yeah.
in that section.
Um, one other thing I wanted to just touch on, literally for one sentence,
Hmm.
is we can't forget about the body. And if you will take care of your body, all this thought work will become so much easier. So that's huge. When I look back, I was working out. I started waking up at 6 o'clock to take I would drag Elder Davis over to the gym with me at the church. And we went hard. Like we weren't doing sissy little body workouts. Like we were going hard every morning. And we were eating the best we could because the members in North Carolina just are so, they love to give you sugar. So our dinners usually sucked health wise. But other than that, we were eating well, the best we knew how, the best we could with our mission funds that were not that much. We were getting like 145 a month.
Yeah, back we we got like extra money every month. It
Yeah,
was
by
so
the end of the
nice.
mission, for the last 9 months of my mission, I was getting like
Yeah,
way
it
more than
was.
that. But yeah, so take care of the body, man. Like I can't stress this enough. It just, you start going working out in the morning, and dude, working out could be taking a half-mile walk or a quarter-mile walk. Okay, like getting your blood flowing. Okay, they've done tons of studies. This is random. They've taken old people most people's hippocampuses in their brain start to shrink. The hippocampus is responsible for a lot of important functions in the body, which I cannot
Is it
name
in
off
your
the top of my head.
brain?
It's part of your brain.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a function in the brain. Look it up, hippocampus. It's really, really useful, and you don't want it to shrink. And
Okay.
most people start shrinking, actually when they're pretty young, like, and by the time they're older, it's shrinking real bad. Well, they did studies where they took a bunch of 60-year-olds, and it'd be fun for me to find the study and have the source, but they had some people do a brisk walk for I think 30 minutes in the morning, and then they had people who weren't exercising at all. And within like 3 weeks, the people who were walking 30 minutes brisk, I think it was 20 to 30 minutes brisk walk. So you get out there and you just walk, at a little bit of a faster pace than you usually would, but it's not a fast walk, just a brisk one. Their hippocampus the shrinkage was reversing. Like it didn't stop. It started growing again just from walking. So imagine if you're going to the gym and you're lifting heavy weights and your heart rate's getting real high. A lot of people are like, they think of weight training as, if you're doing weight training right, your heart rate will be in the fat burn zone of things. There's cardio, which cardio burns glucose in the blood until like you've been in cardio heart rate for like 30-40 minutes. Then it'll start to burn other resources in the body. So cardio, if you're trying to burn a lot of fat, cardio is not your best option. It's actually weight training, because when you're going hard and you're not stopping at burn, but there's this quote that's like this guy's like, I don't start counting my reps until it starts burning. And like I'll like mess around with that sometimes. Today I was doing
That's
no
true.
yet
Yeah.
yeah, yesterday I was squatting just really light because I was kind of sore, so I didn't go heavy at all yesterday, but I was just squatting, and my legs were freaking burning so bad, and I said to myself, what if I could do 10 more with how bad they're burning? And I did. Your body's amazing. So a lot of people start weight training, and as soon as it starts burning, they're like, all right, put the weights down, I'm done. It's like, no, when it starts burning, at least pump out 2 more, but go for more, and your heart rate will start to go up. But anyways, my point is take care of your body, start eating right the best you know how, cut out the excessive sugar, start there, try to implement a little bit of greens. It can be tiny at the beginning, and then start doing some form of exercise, whether even if you want to dance at night for 15 minutes in your house and just screw around, like get your heart rate up, like that's great. Just play some loud music and jump around,
or play the football kicking game and try and block it.
Dude, that was so fun, bro. Dude, I wrecked you in that game though.
Yeah, I was so bad at that game. It was so fun though.
Dude, I wish that was a good time. Yeah, see, we would always get our heart rates up real high at night. But start taking care of your body, and the thought work becomes at least 10 times easier, I would say, in my experience, at least 10 times. For most people, at very, very least, it will become twice as easy to think better thoughts. Because when your body feels like crap, your mind feels like crap. Because your mind, believe it or not, your brain is actually a part of your body. And so the food that you eat, that's what your brain uses as fuel. Like people don't think about this. The brain is where a lot of thoughts are made. So it's like, hey, the thing that's creating the way you're thinking, Like your thinker is made from the food you're eating.
Yeah.
And so eat better food,
You are what
exercise.
you eat.
Literally, you are what you eat. Eat better, exercise, drink a lot of water. I think most people are dehydrated. This is weird, but I'm gonna say it anyways. I walked in the bathroom the other day, and some kid that works at my job he had just finished up in the urinal, and it was like flushing, and I just I just noticed his pee was really yellow, like really yellow, and I was just like, my pee is never like that. Like I don't know when the last time my pee was like that, like ever, and so it's like drink water, man, like stay hydrated. Most people aren't, and most people are drinking a lot of soda and juice. It's like that's not water, bro. Drink water. And seriously, all the stuff we just talked about is going to become so much easier. So I can
Yeah.
go off on that.
Yeah, I mean, my mind just goes to our conversation with Elder Merrill. He's having
Hmm.
having a rough time, on his mission, and then starts to work out again, and then then the spiritual stuff starts to come a little bit easier, and then the mental side starts to kick in, and so it's just like you have to be doing all of these things. Like I look back at times where it was really tough, and at the very worst, exercising and working out is going to give you a 30-minute break or an hour break from those thoughts because you're going to be able to release them. And so at the very
Yeah.
worst, it's a really healthy way to distract yourself. And so for me, like that was like the very bare minimum, but like obviously at the high, it was like helping you work through those thoughts. So yeah, it was just kind of interesting that like the Elder Merrill's example, I think, is a perfect one where he started to do those things, and it started to help out in every single way. And I think we can all think of times where that's happened in our own lives too. So
Yeah. And exactly. And I will say this, I cannot think of a time where I was at a low spot in my life and I was working out while I was in that low spot. Anytime I was in a low spot, I wasn't taking care of my body every single time without fail, without fail. And so it's like the see, like I felt like I was in a rut in May, and you know what got me out of that? The thing that started getting me out of that, it's been a lot of things, but the main thing was I forced myself to go to the gym in the morning. And now it's not even a question. Like Riley's been gone, so now I literally have um Riley doesn't sit there and because she wakes up at 6, so she doesn't sit there and be like, "Are you gonna wake up at 5 tomorrow?" So she doesn't hold me accountable like that. But just her being here is kind of an accountability. Well, so I've just been by myself. And this morning I woke up and like the alarm went off and I was in the middle of this really immersive dream and it was really cool. And so I was like, "Oh, what the crap?" But it's just not a question anymore. I didn't lay there and be like, should I go today? It was just like, all right, it's 5 a.m. on a Saturday. Let's go. Let me go drink some water and let my brain wake up. And that all happened in 8 weeks. And so exercising, like I just will stand on the wall and preach that till the rest of my life, like till I die. Like exercise, it is so crucial. And don't just exercise, but eat. I would say eating right is even more important. And you don't have to eat perfect. No one's going to eat perfect. Everyone's body's different and your metabolism is always changing. So just eat the best you know how.
I'm
You
3 days straight under
under
what
40
40.
grams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so amazing. See, Carter, yeah, because I I I was probably eating around there. Most Australians, Americans, Europeans, everyone acts like it's just America, which I get it. Like America's health is garbage, but it's like Australia's numbers are about obesity numbers are about the same as ours, and a lot of Western Europe is the same. Like you go to the UK, you're gonna see tons of fat people. Trust me. But okay, I get it. Like the US sucks at health. But the sugar thing. So watch that sugar film on YouTube. It's a free movie. Some Australian guy made it. It's funny and it's really informative. But ideally, you want to stay below 40 grams of sugar a day. Once that becomes easy, try to stay below 20. Once that becomes easy, just don't eat any sugar. You'll get your sugars through fruit and some vegetables have some sugar. So you're still going to get some sugar, but it's going to be through food. So that's kind of where I'm getting to the point now is added sugars are starting to just disappear completely. And but it starts with just where you're at, you know? And so bring the sugar content down, drink the water, do some exercise, get a vegetable in at least once a day, preferably every meal, but at least once a day. And then all this thought work to combat scrupulosity is going to be so much easier. Like, it's not even funny, dude. Like, I need to stop or else this is just going to go on for another hour, bro. Freak.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think just my closing invitation would to be, if you're struggling with this and you don't know who to go to, like I know we say this every time, but like this would be one that I would be a little bit more serious about. Like, please, like, come and talk to us, because this is something that not only are we both passionate about, but that we have experience with and that we want to help people with and work through. And so if this is something that you don't have anyone to go to, or if you're just like, I just need to bounce ideas off of like how I can kind of figure this out, because it sucks. It's like, to me, it's like one of Satan's like meanest tricks that he does. And so we don't want you to have to feel like you're going through it alone. And so if we can help you out in any way, or if there's something that we talked about or brushed on today that you're like, hey, I want you guys to dive deeper into that, please let us know, because this is something that we really want to help people with. So that would
Yeah,
be my closing statement.
love it. And I would just add on to that. You prefaced this at the beginning of, you touched on this earlier, but you don't even have to tell us what you're going
Mm-hmm.
through. You can just say, hey, like, I've been having these thoughts, and you can tell us the thoughts. You don't have to tell us what you did. Um, and that'll be very beneficial for both of us, you know, for everybody involved. And so, yeah, Carter and I really love you. We are really passionate about this because, like he said, we've gone through and are going through this, and we've seen tools that have helped us, and we've both used, there's overlap where we used the same, but we've both used different tools, you know, like those articles have really helped you, and things have really helped me that you haven't used. So we have different points of views, and we can hopefully have a wide range of things that could benefit whoever comes to us. And so, yeah, hit us up. You can DM us personally on Instagram, or DM the Anderson Lindhardt Show page. Um, but yeah, that would be our recommendation. Like, please come to us. Shout out to Sam Merrill again. I just freaking love that guy. Did you see a story on
Yeah, I
his?
saw. I went and followed
Yeah,
his
me too, dude.
page.
That made me really excited. I think that's awesome. So yeah, keep it up,
We'll have to
brother.
put it on the show page too. We'll have to go shout him out. So
Yeah, no, for sure. So yeah, we love you guys, and we'll catch you next time. Episode 25, hopefully, if that other one didn't get deleted. But
hopefully, okay. We love
anyways,
you guys. Love you. Bye.
love you. Bye.